Vivek Ramaswamy recently went on to CNN to talk about the recent shooting in Jacksonville and white supremacy. We're going to be talking about that today here on the left wing. I am Desmond Price of the Independent Thought Podcast, joined by my co-host, TJ Whitehead from Powers Taken, Not Given. So the rising candidate on the Republican side, Vivek Ramaswamy, someone who everyone has seemingly known overnight after not really knowing who he was a week ago, recently went on with Dana Bash on CNN to talk about the recent shooting in Jacksonville, where a gunman went and specifically targeted Black people and killed three of them, in the shooting. Now, Vivek went on to go ahead and discuss his thoughts on why the shooting took place and his thoughts on racism in America. We're going to play a clip for Vivek, gives a normal conservative answer to basically whenever they're asked questions about why there are racist attacks of any kind in America. TJ, I want to just start this conversation off going right to you with this. What exactly is going on with conservatives in America? Why is it though that they always feel as though they can't specifically say that, I guess, racism even exists at all?
They can't. They're allergic to doing it. It's kind of like how they used to accuse liberals of not saying Islamic terror. I don't know if you remember that back in the day.
Oh yeah,
terror,
yeah.
They were just beating down the door saying you need to say Islamic terror, but whenever an incident happens in which there is an obvious white supremacist, Klan hat, Confederate flag and everything like that, and literally written down on paper, signed in their own name, I'm coming after Black people, and you address a conservative about this, it's like, hey, what's up with this? They say, well, I'm against all forms of racism. And you saw it with Black Lives Matter, when it's like, well, I think all lives matter. Like they just cannot bring themselves to ever acquiesce anything to the Black community. And it started, well, I mean, that didn't start, but the modern Republican Party conservative movement after the Civil Rights Movement, it was always interesting to me that conservatives try to take, because Republicans were the main one who voted for the Civil Rights Act back in '64, and they always try to take credit for that as if that was them. And I always bring up the fact that conservatives love to say that America was racist in the past, and that's what I've heard my entire life. In the 1990s, they said, well, it was racist in the past, but it's okay now. And these days, it was so funny. I saw a comment on video. I may say, yeah. America had its problems like back in the 90s, but now it's okay. And this has been their script ever since the Civil Rights Act. And you can tell because conservatives will admit, because they have to, that, after slavery ended and we had Jim Crow for about 100 years, that the Black community was disenfranchised. It was beaten down. It was excluded from power. It was excluded from maximizing their potential to earn financially. They were locked out of suburbs, locked out of the GI Bill after they came back from World War II. They'll acknowledge all of that, and they'll say, okay, well, since
some of them won't, but
and you say, well, okay, so you agree that the American government disenfranchised Black people for 100 years. Yeah. Okay. So don't you think that the American government owed the Black community some financial assistance after that? Answer is no. Fuck you. We're not doing it. And they've been doing it ever since the Civil Rights Act. And there's a speech by Richard Nixon I was looking at today, 1968. 1968, Black people hadn't had civil rights 5 years at this point. And he was already railing on the fact that welfare was like crippling people, and welfare was the worst thing we could do. We need to take his entire platform in 1980 on the fact that Black people had it too easy for too long. They just cannot welfare queens, bucks, healthy bucks driving Cadillacs. They cannot. It's like they have an absolute aversion to it. The only time that they will acknowledge racism is racism towards them. And that's the conservative mantra. It's like, conservatives like to say this, basically. They don't say it out loud, but this is what they mean. They say, racism in the United States is not a problem. It doesn't exist. But to the extent that it does, it's racism towards me. And most conservatives are white. And so they'll say anti-white racism. University professors are teaching 7-year-old white girls that it's their fault slavery happened. Like that's what they say, nonsense like this. Yeah. And even conservatives who are minorities, like Tim Scott, if you're just feeling down one day, if you are just having like the shittiest day imaginable, watch Tim Scott's announcement that he's running for president of the United States. It is hilarious. He comes up, for those of you who don't know, Tim Scott is a black, huh?
No, what happened in this speech? Now I need to know.
So yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Tim Scott is a black Republican senator from South Carolina.
Yeah.
And he was giving his speech saying that he was announced he's running for president. And he walks up there, and one of the things he says to the audience out of nowhere is, America is not a racist country. And the crowd goes wild. They just erupt and they're cheering, they're standing up, you know, they're like, women are crying and passing out in the crowd. It's embarrassing. But not 5 minutes later, he goes on to speak about, you know, I grew up, you know, around the Jim Crow era. I was facing segregation, and my mom was single, trying to raise us by herself. It was really difficult. I've had people call me the N-words. Okay, buddy, wait, is it racist or not? No, it's racist against him. That's it. And Vivek Ramaswamy said this in his interview, where he, you know, denies the existence of white supremacy. Not in that interview. Said
wait, we have a clip of that one. Let's play that one really quick.
Let's go. Yeah, so Vivek Ramaswamy mentions in a clip before that you know, you're just as likely to see a unicorn as you are to see a white supremacist. And then when a white supremacist goes out and murders a bunch of people, and they ask him about it, so well, you know, actually, I've experienced some racism too. So racism is only real on an individual level to them. It can't be systemic, it can't be widespread, because they don't want to face it. Because when conservatives say they love the country, they don't mean the people. Yeah, they just mean like this idea of this you know, grandiose puritanical version of the country that doesn't exist in real life.
You know, the thing that we don't have the clip here just at the moment, but like after, like in that interview, after Dana Bash played for him that particular clip of him being in Iowa talking about white supremacy, he then followed up, you know, like talking to Dana, saying that what we're really seeing is mental derangement. He kept saying that over and over again. So in the sense that he was even like halfway admitting that there was, like, you know, a racial component to the shooter in Jacksonville, instead of just saying that a racist human went looking to kill people, he had to specifically say, you know, like, I'm against, you know, like mental derangement of all kinds that leads to racial animus. Trying to find out like a very rosy way of saying that, well, only the mentally deranged are, you know, quote unquote, white supremacists or racists or that matter. And it's just like, you know what, in a way, I don't know if he actually believes that, or if he just feels like he has to pander because he's a person of color running as a Republican. And you can't really say that racism exists and be a Republican in America right now. Apparently you just can't, because in their mind, only someone who's mentally deranged is racist. That's absolute bullshit. It just really is. Ridiculous. It really is. And at the same point, he also said that, you know, like he experiences racism from the modern left. That's who the biggest proponents of, you know, modern racism are. And so is he saying that mental derangement is just something that the modern left experiences? You know, nothing that he's really was saying that's truly adding up here. But it does, for me, to speak to a larger problem that I'm seeing here when we're talking about race in America. And you kind of tied into it before, where, you know, Republicans are saying that the only real racism is racism against them. They just don't want to talk about it at all. Like the end, just the end. Like, as you were saying, like they want to say like, oh, well, the civil rights movement happened in 1964. The Civil Rights Act happened in 1964. And that was basically the end of, you know, racism in America. And, oh, by the way, we elected a black president twice, so we couldn't be racist. We can't be racist. And it doesn't matter that, you know, how many tens of millions of people didn't vote for Barack Obama,
right?
Or the fact that you apparently aren't racist if you vote for Barack Obama. Like, where is the logic there? Like truthfully, like where's the logic with that, you know, whatsoever? But I don't know what to do when it comes to some of these conversations with people. Like, sometimes I truly wonder where these talking points come from in the first place. You know, to honestly, to think in your mind that if you have a black president, or if, you know, I guess, you know, black people aren't hanging from trees anymore, so obviously we're not a racist country. I mean, where does that even come from, do you think?
Well, first I want to say real quick before I address that Ron DeSantis did the exact same thing too, because it took place in Florida. They asked him, "Hey, what do you have to say about the racially motivated?" He said the exact same thing.
It's
I
a
condemn
talking point.
racism on all sides. Like, how do
Yeah.
you think this makes you look good? Like how? I mean, like, it's just because Republicans don't want to talk about it, like you said. But as far as where it comes from, it goes deep back into the culture of slavery era. Because look, if you read what slave owners said back in the 19th and 18th centuries and everything,
Yeah.
none of them, like almost none of them, say I hate black people. It doesn't happen. They don't say it. They say I love black people. I want what's best for black people. I don't think that they could actually survive on their own. This is good for them. God has sent them to us so we can civilize them and help them. That is what they always say. And so when we've done ourselves a great disservice over the years by asserting that racism is some sort of personal failure, in which unless someone says I hate this person because of the color of their skin, that's the bar for racism. Anything other than that is not racism at all. Like, you've heard people say, well, they're not racist, they're just an asshole. It's like, no, look, they're a racist. Like, they just deal with it.